right, so here is Exhibit A right here. This is an autumn olive bush. Does this look familiar to anybody?
Oh yeah.
This is all over the landscape in Connecticut. And in fact, Les Mehrhoff, who's the state botanist in Connecticut, he really dislikes this plant because it's considered to be very disruptive. One thing it does, in addition to occupying any space that you give it, is that this plant has nitrogen-fixing nodules in its root systems, and so it can grow in relatively poor soil. So I'll find a lot of them in gravel pits and stuff like that. But how did this plant get to be so common in the landscape? We have to blame the Connecticut Highway Department, I mean Massachusetts Highway Department too. It's not just Connecticut's fault. This plant's all over Massachusetts too. And also, the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife in Massachusetts, which is the agency I work for, planted a bunch of this because the birds like to eat the berries back in the 60s before they knew it was invasive. So now it's all over the place. But my attitude about invasive species is, if the ecologists, get rid of them, fine. But in the meantime, if they're around and they're yummy, I'm going to eat them. Okay? So, autumn olives, you see how it has this kind of silvery color to it? That's where it got the olive name, just because this has a vague resemblance to olive trees. It's actually not a close cousin of olives at all. And the autumn is an indication about when the fruit is ripe. It's ripe in late September into October, November, and so on. So around Columbus Day would be a really great time to look for it. And if you look carefully at the plant, so why don't you all come closer so you can see. You see the fruit developing on the plant right here. It's very small now, and it's gold color. It's eventually going to be egg-shaped or round and red with little silvery white speckles on it, but that won't be until October, so it's got a long way to go. That's why it's so small right now. Now, before that happened, this plant was covered with these yellowish white blossoms with a very nice smell. And that's another way that you can track autumn olives down in the spring. When they're blooming, they're quite visible from a distance. And so, but I find just the color of the foliage helps me pick them out from other things that look like them. And so, all right, so let's turn the clock ahead and pretend that it's October, and we come to a plant like this, and the typical plant is going to be loaded with red berries. In fact, it's so loaded that the branches bend down from the weight of the berries. The berries are in great gobs in the branches, so the picking of these can be really fast. You can basically milk the branches, and just hundreds of fruit are falling into your basket or your bucket. So you don't have to pick individual fruit. But the first thing I do, even before that stage, is I play Goldilocks, because not all autumn olive bushes have the same flavor. And so I go from bush to bush and I taste a berry, and sometimes they're very astringent, they're very puckery, they make your cheeks cave in, they're not very good at all. And sometimes they can be insipid, as they're sweet but there's no tartness, and it's not very good either. So you want the right combination of sweetness and tartness, and then when you find that, all the other berries in that bush will be the same flavor, the same degree of ripeness. So that's when you start your milking action. So you end up with this big basket of fruit, of berries, and usually I can fill up a big basket in a half an hour or less. And then I bring the basket home. Oh, let me say, you can really tasty autumn olive berry, you can eat raw. The flavor's like a Thompson seedless grape. It does have seeds in it though, which you can swallow or spit out. It doesn't really matter. But you can, but what I usually do is process them into this puree. So I bring them home, throw them in a big pot, like a lobster pot, with just enough water in the bottom to keep the fruit from scorching, so like 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, that's it. Simmer them for a while, stir them occasionally, like a while is like 25-30 minutes, till the fruit softens and stuff and separates the pulp from the seeds. And then I put everything through a food mill, so if you know what a food mill is, you can use that. Or you could just use a regular sieve and take a wooden spoon and just push the pulp against the side of the sieve. And eventually all the seeds will be held back, compost those, you're done with them. And then what goes through is this frothy mauve colored puree, which you can use as raw material for making fruit soups, jams, jellies, chiffon pie, sorbet, stuff like that. Or you can make the fruit leather that I made, and all I do is just pour that puree into trays in a food dehydrator and let it run overnight. And the next day, what I get is what you ate. Okay? So I like to make the fruit leather just because it's really portable. I don't have to refrigerate it. It stays in my pantry till I'm ready to serve it to a bunch of people. So, I've got other things that I need to, cook and to make dishes and stuff. And so it's nice if I have something that I can just, carry around with me, serve to people on programs. It's really good.